In the heart of a city that never truly slept, there came a strange and sudden quiet. Birds stopped chirping. Distant sirens faded into stillness. The usual hum of traffic was gone, replaced by something far more chilling, an eerie silence that stretched for miles. Amelia Grant, a field journalist with a reputation for chasing the truth into dangerous places, noticed it first. She stood atop an abandoned news van in the middle of downtown, recording the strange emptiness with her camcorder. "It's like the world held its breath," she whispered into her mic. Just 24 hours ago, the city had been alive with noise, color, and chaos. Now, even the air felt different, heavier, colder. Reports had begun trickling in from rural towns, unconfirmed stories about people collapsing and then standing back up, changed. Amelia dismissed them at first as internet myths, clickbait sensationalism. But now, she wasn't so sure. The streets were empty. The power grid was flickering. And the police scanners had gone from chaotic to static. Then came the first scream. It echoed between buildings like a crack of thunder. Amelia turned quickly, focusing her lens on the source. A man sprinted out of a pharmacy, blood soaking his shirt, not his own. Behind him stumbled a figure with broken limbs, its eyes lifeless but locked on its prey. Its movements were jerky, unnatural, and it emitted a guttural growl that no human throat should make. Amelia's heart pounded. She recorded everything, every second, as more figures emerged from alleys and storefronts. They weren't running, they didn't have to. Panic had made their prey slow, clumsy. People who tried to flee were dragged down, their cries swallowed by the hungry mass. She turned off the camera and ran. Miles away, in a secure underground facility known only as Outpost Red, a team of international scientists and military strategists reviewed satellite footage in stunned silence. Cities across the globe were reporting the same phenomenon. Civilizations weren't falling, they were collapsing in freefall. Communications went dark in waves. There were no warnings. No patterns. Just infection. Colonel Damon Briggs, a hardened strategist with a 1,000-yard stare, stood at the head of the table. "We've seen biohazards. We've seen civil wars. This is different. This isn't a war. It's a reset." "Then we fight back," said Dr. Lena Moreno, a virologist whose face bore the exhaustion of weeks without rest. "There has to be something, some way to resist this mutation." Briggs narrowed his eyes. "We'll need more than science. We need something deeper. Something raw. Humanity has always risen when pushed to the edge. Let's find out if we still can." Meanwhile, Amelia found shelter in a partially collapsed bookstore. She wasn't alone. A small group had taken refuge inside, an ex-firefighter named Kane, 2 teenage siblings who hadn't spoken since their parents vanished, and an elderly librarian named Ruth who held a shotgun like she was born with it. The air was thick with unspoken fear. No one knew what was happening, only that they were surrounded by something unrelenting and inhuman. Amelia looked at them, strangers bonded by shared horror. "We're not just going to wait here to die," she said. "We find others. We gather what we can. We figure out what they are, and how to stop them." Kane nodded. "If they bleed, they can be beaten." "No," Ruth said grimly. "They don't bleed. Not like us. I shot one clean through the head. It still kept coming, until I hit the spine." The teenagers looked at each other for the first time in hours. "So they can be stopped," Amelia said, determination taking root in her voice. "Then that's our first mission. Learn. Fight. Survive." Far above them, in the swirling gray sky, military drones circled. Cameras zoomed. Data streamed. Humanity had not yet fallen. It was awakening. Let me know when you're ready for Part 2. Would you like a short one-line summary of what Part 2 will be about? Thunder rolled low in the distance, but the skies above the city remained dry. From their shelter in the shattered bookstore, Amelia and her small group huddled in silence. Every creak of the building made their hearts jump. Every gust of wind sounded like the moan of one of them. Kane stood near the front door, peeking through a crack in the wooden boards they'd nailed up. His hands gripped the axe he'd found behind the fire escape. "We're boxed in. Maybe 20 or 30 of them out there, but more keep coming." Amelia adjusted her camera bag and set down a stack of batteries she'd scavenged. "We need to get out before we're completely surrounded. If this is happening everywhere, there has to be a pattern. A way they're spreading." Ruth loaded another shell into her shotgun. "You think there's a plan behind this?" "They're mindless husks." "Maybe," Amelia said, "but I've seen how they move. They swarm, but they don't stumble into each other. It's like something's guiding them." Kane's eyes narrowed. "Then whatever's guiding them, let's not let it find us first." Suddenly, a crash echoed from the back of the building. A side door swung open with a loud metallic screech, and the group instantly fell into a tense silence. Kane raised his axe. Ruth took aim. The teens froze in place. Out of the shadows stepped a man in tactical gear, mud-caked, one sleeve torn off, and a bite wound clearly visible on his neck. He was panting, eyes wide. "Don't shoot," he croaked, collapsing to the floor. Amelia rushed to him. "Who are you?" He gripped her arm with surprising strength. "Name's Walker. Sergeant. Recon team. Outpost Red. The virus, it's not just infection. It's a signal." Before anyone could respond, his body convulsed. His skin paled. His pupils dilated. Kane didn't wait, he swung the axe down in one brutal motion. The silence returned just as quickly. The teens turned away, one of them crying softly. Ruth exhaled deeply. He turned fast. Amelia looked at the body, her mind racing. "A signal?" "We need to move," Kane said. "Now. If that thing was military, there's a chance others know what's going on." They slipped out through the broken side door and moved through the alleyways, avoiding the streets. The city had become a maze of ruins and shadows. Here and there, signs of desperate resistance littered the ground, abandoned weapons, empty shells, handwritten notes. One wall read in red spray paint. "They listen. Stay quiet. Stay sharp." They pressed on. Meanwhile, miles away at Outpost Red, Colonel Briggs reviewed bodycam footage from Sergeant Walker's last transmission. In the final 10 seconds before contact was lost, Walker's audio picked up something strange, faint static, then a low-frequency hum, and underneath that, voices. Not human voices. Not any language. "Play it again," Briggs ordered. "Run a deep frequency analysis." Dr. Moreno leaned forward. "That pattern, it's coordinated. Maybe not language, but behavior. Controlled instinct." Briggs turned. "Which means something or someone is behind this." Back in the city, Amelia's group ducked inside a parking garage. Kane scouted ahead, while Ruth watched the rear. The teens stayed close to Amelia. Suddenly, from the far end of the lot, they heard a different sound, footsteps. Rushed. Human. Another survivor, a woman, armed, bruised, limping, burst into view. She froze when she saw them. "Don't shoot. I'm not infected." They let her approach. "Name's Jada," she said. "There's a rescue team. They're gathering survivors in the subway. But the tunnels, they're not safe anymore." Kane looked skeptical. "You saw it?" She nodded. "It's not just the surface. Underground, they're smarter down there. It's like they're evolving." Amelia looked at the others. "We need to see this for ourselves." If there's a rescue team, that's our next move. Ruth cocked her shotgun. Then we go through the dark. The group nodded. And so began their descent into the unknown, into the tunnels where the rules of the surface no longer applied. Where the undead waited in silence. And listened. The subway entrance loomed ahead, dark, lifeless, a black mouth yawning open beneath the ruins of the city. Tracks of dried blood led down the cracked concrete stairs, disappearing into the shadows. The air reeked of rust, oil, and something far fouler. Kane held his axe tightly as he led the way. Jada followed close behind, guiding the group with practiced steps. Rescue stations at Westline, 7. 2 levels below, she whispered. But since yesterday, nothing's come through. No radios. No signals. Just static. Maybe they moved, Amelia said hopefully. Or they didn't survive, Ruth muttered. The group descended in silence, flashlights sweeping over graffiti-covered walls and shattered glass. The deeper they went, the more unnatural the silence became. There were no rats. No dripping water. Only their breathing and the creak of their boots. Kane suddenly raised his hand, halting the group. Hear that? Everyone froze. From ahead, a rhythmic sound echoed faintly, tap, drag, tap, drag. Then another noise layered in, whispering. But not words. Just a soft, pulsing hum that scraped against the edges of understanding. Jada's voice was a whisper. They're close. Stay behind me. And don't speak. They turned a corner and froze. A pack of the undead was gathered around a half-eaten corpse. But unlike the surface roamers, these ones moved with unsettling coordination. They weren't stumbling or twitching. They were, waiting. Their heads all turned at once, toward the direction of the group, though no one had made a sound. They heard us think, one of the teenagers breathed. The lead creature emitted a low groan, not mindless, but deliberate. A signal. Then the pack charged. Move! Kane yelled. The group ran, boots pounding down the narrow tunnel. Flashlights swung wildly. Behind them, the creatures shrieked, their steps quicker and terrifyingly synchronized. Jada led them through a maintenance door and slammed it shut. Kane braced it with a rusted pipe. Breathing hard, they found themselves in an old control room. Flickering monitors lit the space with a sickly glow. Are we safe? One of the teens asked. For now, Ruth said, watching the door as it pulsed under impact. But they're learning. Amelia examined the monitors. Look, some still work. The grainy screens showed different angles of the tunnels. One by one, the undead were beginning to move differently, flanking positions, avoiding cameras, even using shadows. They're adapting, Amelia said, a chill in her voice. Jada pointed to one screen. That's Westline, 7. A group of survivors, no more than 10, huddled behind a barricade of train parts. A makeshift LED flare blinked above them, a weak distress beacon. They're alive, Kane said. We go to them. Amelia zoomed in. Wait, what's that? A new figure had appeared on the monitor, taller than the rest, its limbs wrapped in torn tactical gear. It didn't stumble. It walked. Behind it, others mirrored its movements exactly. Looks like it was one of us once, Kane said grimly. Ruth loaded her last shell. Maybe something worse. Back at Outpost Red, alarms rang. Technicians shouted as new data poured in. The infected weren't just spreading, they were evolving with every encounter. Colonel Briggs slammed a file onto the table. They're not multiplying. They're recruiting. Using what they learn against us. Dr. Moreno stepped forward. Then our only chance is to cut off the signal. Briggs nodded. Or destroy whatever's sending it. Back in the subway, the group began moving again, toward Westline, 7, toward the unknown. Each step took them deeper into darkness, into a war unlike anything the world had ever faced. But something inside them had awakened too, a spark, a fire. And they weren't ready to give up just yet. Let me know when you're ready for part 4. Would you like a one-line preview of what happens next? The tracks beneath Westline, 7 trembled with distant thunder, though no trains had moved in weeks. Kane crouched near the edge of the platform, eyes fixed on the flickering emergency beacon. 10 survivors were trapped beyond a half-collapsed tunnel, using overturned rail cars as a barricade. They're running low on ammo, Jada said, checking her sidearm. 2 of them are injured. 1 barely conscious. We can't go straight, Amelia whispered. The infected control the main path. Kane pointed to an old service tunnel marked maintenance access, restricted. We circle around. Come in from the side. Ruth tightened her grip on her shotgun. Let's hope it's not restricted because of what's in there. The group entered the narrow passage, the walls tight, the air hot and stagnant. Strange markings covered the concrete, drawn in charcoal or maybe old blood, symbols none of them recognized. Circles within circles. Lines pulsing outward like sound waves. What is this? One of the teens murmured. Amelia photographed a few of the symbols. I've seen something like this in Walker's footage. Near military labs. These aren't random. They're not just evolving, Jada muttered. They're being taught. Halfway through the tunnel, the hum returned, low, steady, and no longer mechanical. This one pulsed inside their heads, making thoughts feel heavy. Confused. Kane stumbled. Ruth grabbed his arm. Kane. I'm fine, he said through clenched teeth. Just keep moving. As they emerged from the tunnel's end, they found themselves behind the barricade. The survivors looked up in shock, rifles raised, until one recognized Jada. Jada. You made it. She nodded and stepped forward. We don't have long. We need to get everyone topside. But the other survivors looked grim. It's not just them down here, one man said. There's something else. It doesn't feed. It commands. As if summoned, a scream echoed from the far end of the tunnel. Then came the sound of claws on steel. The creature stepped into view, 7 feet tall, its skin a patchwork of decaying muscle and mechanical enhancements. Where its face should have been, there was only a mass of writhing wires and a central glowing eye. Run, Ruth said. Now. The survivors and the team bolted. The creature let out a piercing shriek, and from the shadows, the infected swarmed. But they weren't running in chaos. They moved like soldiers, flanking, cornering, hurting. Amelia ducked behind a support beam and raised her camera, snapping photos of the creature. It's not just stronger. It's a transmitter. That thing is the signal. Kane turned and hurled a metal pipe toward a loose power cable, sparks showering the tunnel. The flash confused the creatures momentarily, just long enough for the group to make it to an old maintenance train. Get in. Jada yelled, pulling levers. Miraculously, the engine sputtered to life. The train lurched forward, screeching on rusty rails. Behind them, the infected gave chase. The glowing-eyed monster didn't follow, it simply turned and vanished into the shadows. As the train sped through the tunnel, Amelia reviewed her photos. This is proof. That thing, it's not natural. Someone built it. Ruth looked over. You think this was done on purpose? Amelia nodded. It started as infection. Now it's something else. Controlled. Directed. Kane leaned against the wall, blood seeping from a gash on his arm. Then who's controlling it? No one had an answer. Above ground, Colonel Briggs watched a live satellite scan of the city. Red markers showed infected clusters, but one beacon pulsed brighter and faster than the others. "Found it," Briggs said. "It's moving underground, like a commander on the battlefield." Dr. Moreno turned from her console. "It's not just a hive. It's a network." "Then we hit it where it hurts," Briggs said. "We cut the signal." Back in the train, the survivors caught their breath, but only for a moment. Ahead, the tunnel grew darker. And the real war was just beginning. The old maintenance train screeched to a halt near a half-collapsed exit shaft. Steam hissed from broken valves. Sparks rained down from frayed wires above. The survivors spilled out, coughing, dragging the injured with them. Kane was pale, his wounded arm wrapped tightly in cloth, but he waved off help. They had reached Outpost Grey, a decommissioned military shelter long thought abandoned. But as they pried open the emergency hatch, light flooded their eyes. A squad of armed soldiers stood inside, guns raised, armor marked with the insignia of the United Global Response Force. Jada stepped forward. "We've got civilians. Injured. And critical intel." One of the soldiers lowered his weapon and motioned them inside. "Colonel Briggs has been waiting for you." Inside, Outpost Grey buzzed with activity. Technicians monitored blinking screens. Medics rushed to assist the wounded. Engineers worked feverishly on strange new tech, some salvaged from military labs, some repurposed from captured infected. Kane was rushed to the infirmary while the rest of the team was led to the command room. Colonel Briggs stood over a large digital map of the city. Red zones pulsed like infected veins, growing, merging. One blue marker blinked faintly at the heart of it all. Briggs turned to them. "We've confirmed what you saw. That creature, what you called the transmitter, it's real. And it's not alone." He tapped the map. "They've evolved a new type of leader class. Smart, fast, coordinated. We're calling them commanders. And they're spreading." Amelia stepped forward and placed her camera chip on the table. "I got images of one. Its movements. Its structure. You'll see, it's part machine." Dr. Moreno uploaded the data. The screen lit up with disturbing images, mechanical implants fused with rotting flesh, reinforced joints, biosignal nodes pulsing in its spine. "This wasn't an accident," she muttered. "Someone built this evolution." Briggs clenched his jaw. "We're preparing to strike. Our first offensive in weeks." Ruth folded her arms. "You're going to fight them? With what?" The colonel pointed to a large crate being wheeled in. "EMP charges. Pulse grenades. We've adapted their tech into weapons. If these creatures rely on a signal to organize, we'll sever it." The mission was simple: infiltrate the transmitter zone, deploy the EMP, and extract before being overwhelmed. High risk, slim odds, but it was their first real shot at pushing back. That night, the strike team suited up, Ruth, Jada, Amelia, and Kane, against the medic's warnings. He refused to stay behind. "You're still healing," Jada warned. "I heal later," Kane replied. "We fight now." The team boarded a silent hover transport, descending into a ruined sector of the city. The transmitter's location pulsed faintly in Amelia's tracker, hidden in a maze of steel and shadow. Moving swiftly through crumbling alleys and smoke-choked streets, they spotted signs of the new infected everywhere: tactical symbols smeared on walls, barricades of bones and wires, scouts with glowing eyes that melted into the dark. At last, they found it, a radio tower long abandoned, its frame twisted and fused with cables that pulsed with unnatural energy. At the base of the structure, several commander-class infected stood like sentinels, guarding, not attacking. "They know," Amelia whispered. "They feel us coming." Jada set the EMP device and activated the timer. 2 minutes. Suddenly, the infected charged. Gunfire erupted. Ruth dropped 2 in seconds, but a third leapt at her, faster than anything she'd seen. Kane tackled it, slamming his axe into its neck. Jada fought off a beast with steel claws, her blade flashing under the flickering lights. The timer hit 0. A blinding white pulse exploded from the device, electricity surged through the area. The infected froze, screaming, their bodies jerking uncontrollably before collapsing. For a moment, there was silence. Then the tower groaned. Sparks flew from its joints. A low rumble filled the air. "Move!" Kane shouted. The team sprinted away as the structure collapsed in a thunderous crash behind them. Back at Outpost Gray, cheers erupted as the red pulse on the map dimmed. They had won a battle. But everyone knew, it was just the beginning. The ruined transmitter tower smoldered under the gray sky, its twisted metal husk still crackling with residual energy. The bodies of the commander-class infected lay motionless, twitching now and then as if unsure whether to die or reboot. Kane stood over one of them, breathing hard, his axe still dripping. "We did it," Amelia said, her voice low with disbelief. But Kane didn't answer. Because just then, the corpse blinked. Not with eyes, but with its chest. A red core, half machine, pulsed once. Then it disintegrated into ash, leaving behind only the charred outline of a handprint burned into the concrete. "What was that?" Jada asked, stepping back. Ruth scanned the area. "It didn't just die. It self-erased." "They're trying to hide the tech," Amelia said grimly. "They don't want us learning from it." They returned to Outpost Gray with the EMP device's damaged shell and fragments of scorched infected armor. The mood in the base was cautiously optimistic, until Dr. Moreno delivered the news. The good news: we disrupted their signal network in Zone Delta. That area's gone silent. Fewer sightings. Less aggression. And the bad news? Ruth asked, though she already knew it was coming. "They've changed frequency." Briggs stared at the updated satellite scans. "They're still communicating. Still organizing. But now on a new channel. Faster. Tighter. Like we poked the hive and now the queen's getting serious." "What queen?" Kane asked. Moreno zoomed in on a cluster of red signals converging in an abandoned industrial zone on the edge of the city. "We think there's a higher command class. Something even above the commander type. Possibly intelligent. Possibly central." "You mean a brain?" Jada asked. "A hive mind?" "No," Moreno said. "Not just a brain. A general." The room fell silent. Briggs exhaled. "Then we need to find it before it finds us." Amelia leaned over the map. "It's adapting. It's learning. And if it has access to military research from the past, then it could be building something." Later that night, alarms blared across Outpost Gray. An explosion rocked the eastern gate. The infected had found them. And this time, they weren't charging blindly. They were surrounding the base, coordinated, silent, terrifyingly precise. The infected weren't roaring. They were waiting. Ruth and Jada took to the barricades as soldiers scrambled into position. Kane, despite his wounds, rallied civilians to the lower bunkers. Amelia rushed to the control room. "How did they find us?" "We've been running dark." A tech pointed to a signal spike. "They didn't track us. They baited us." The collapse of the tower wasn't a loss, it was a lure. They wanted us to use the EMP. To trace it. Outpost Gray had been compromised from the moment they launched the counterattack. Briggs made the call. Evacuation protocol. Priority Alpha. Gunfire echoed through the halls. Doors slammed. Sirens wailed. As Ruth gunned down two infected at close range, she saw them dragging something, a device, cobbled together with wires and glowing blue crystal. "What is that?" she shouted. "They're planting something," Jada replied, taking cover. It wasn't a bomb. It was a beacon. The infected were turning Outpost Grey into a new transmitter hub. A reverse invasion. "They're copying us," Kane said, watching the beacon spark to life. "They're not just attacking, they're replicating our strategy." Briggs ordered the team to fall back. "We're not winning this fight. We regroup at Rally Point Echo." The outpost's ceiling groaned as more infected poured in. Amelia grabbed her laptop, still uploading core data from the fallen commander. "This can't be for nothing. We have to get this out." With the last remaining hover transport, the core team and a few civilians blasted out of the underground base just as it collapsed behind them, a swirl of smoke and dust rising into the air like a tombstone. The infected had taken Outpost Grey. But the humans had taken knowledge. And the war was far from over. The sky over Rally Point Echo burned with the orange glow of distant fires. Once a forgotten airfield on the outskirts of the city, it now served as the final line of defense for those who had escaped Outpost Grey. Makeshift tents lined the cracked runway, while soldiers erected barricades from scrap metal and broken drones. Kane, his arms still in a sling, stood beside Jada and Ruth as they watched a fresh group of survivors arrive, faces hollow, clothing torn, eyes wide with silent horror. "Every outpost is falling," Ruth muttered. "We're running out of places to hide." Amelia and Dr. Moreno worked deep inside the tech tent, analyzing fragments recovered from the commander-class infected. The data was staggering. A digital blueprint revealed something none of them expected. "These creatures, they're not just biological," Moreno whispered. "They're running code. Adaptive code. Updating like software. Which means someone, or something, is writing the updates," Amelia said. Moreno tapped the screen. "And here's the worst part. This signal pattern." She pointed to a waveform pulsing in steady intervals. "It's human-made. This wasn't born from mutation. Someone designed this architecture." Jada stepped into the tent, overhearing the last part. "You're saying this whole thing was engineered?" "We think so," Moreno confirmed. "The infected were the first wave. But now we believe something else is coming." Suddenly, the power flickered. The base's floodlights dimmed for a moment before stabilizing. "EMP?" Ruth asked, already gripping her weapon. "No. Interference," one of the engineers answered. "They're jamming us." A scout raced across the camp, breathless. "We've spotted a new form. East perimeter. Not the usual infected. You'll want to see this." The team followed the scout to a ridge overlooking the valley. There, marching with terrifying precision, were dozens of infected, each nearly 8 feet tall, armored with bone-plated skin, and wielding crude but coordinated weapons. At their center marched a towering figure, different from all the rest. Its skin was pale and metallic, its face hidden behind a visor-like mask fused to its skull. It moved slowly, confidently, scanning the horizon. Amelia's eyes widened. "That's it. That's the general." It looked nothing like the mindless undead they had fought before. Its posture was regal, its movement strategic. When a drone buzzed overhead, it glanced upward, and raised one finger. The drone exploded in midair. "They're evolving," Jada said softly. This isn't a virus anymore. It's an army." Kane stepped forward. "So we stop running." "What?" Ruth turned to him. He nodded. "They're not afraid of us because we always run. It's time we show them humanity still knows how to fight." Briggs, standing nearby, overheard. "We agree. That's why we've been preparing." The colonel led them to a hidden hangar at the edge of the base. Inside were 6 sleek, prototype mechs, powered suits developed in the early days of the outbreak but never field-tested. Outfitted with pulse cannons, kinetic shields, and reactive armor, they represented the last edge humanity had over the infected. "You've all survived longer than most," Briggs said. "You've earned the chance to strike back." Kane smirked. "About time." The following hours were a blur of calibrations, training, and final goodbyes. Everyone at Rally Point Echo knew what was coming. This wouldn't be a skirmish. This would be the battle. As night fell, the valley below filled with infected forces, hundreds, maybe thousands, moving with machine-like coordination, all led by the towering general. Inside their cockpits, the team waited, nerves taut, weapons armed. Ruth's voice crackled over the radio. "We ready for this?" Jada replied, "We don't have a choice." Amelia looked out through her visor. "Let's show them what awakening really means." The signal was given. And the mechs roared to life. "Ready for the final showdown? Let me know when you want part 8. The battlefield was quiet, eerily quiet. The stars above blinked in and out of view behind drifting clouds, casting a pale light over the valley. Atop a ridge, 6 armored mechs stood side by side, gleaming with energy and resolve. Below them, the undead army spread out like a sea of shadows, eyes glowing faint red, their leader, the general, towering above all. Kane's voice came through the radio, calm but steady. "This is it. Either we end it, or it ends us." From her cockpit, Amelia focused on the readings. "Target the signal hub on the general's chest. That's the nexus point. If we cut that off, the whole network may collapse." "Won't be that easy," Ruth added. "They're guarding it like it's their heart." The general raised one hand, and the horde surged forward. Like a black tide, the infected charged the ridge with inhuman speed and precision. Screeches, howls, and metallic clanks filled the night air as hundreds of creatures ascended, hungry for annihilation. "Engage!" Briggs commanded. The mechs leapt into motion. Kane led the charge, crashing into the front line with a shockwave blast that sent the first wave flying. Ruth followed, her suit's twin blades slicing through bone and machine with precision. Jada laid down suppressing fire from the rear, picking off infected that attempted to flank them. Above them, Amelia soared with jump boosters, scanning the battlefield and relaying targets. "Left side. They're clustering, Ruth, clear a path." Dr. Moreno, piloting the most heavily shielded mech, advanced toward the general, absorbing blow after blow as she tried to get close enough to deploy the virus they developed, coded from stolen data within the commander unit. But the general wasn't just watching. It moved. With unnatural speed, it descended from its perch and met Kane head-on, striking his mech with a brutal uppercut that launched him backward. His screens blinked red. "I'm okay. Armor's holding. Hit it with everything you've got." Jada fired a concentrated energy beam at the general, but it raised its arm, absorbing the impact with a glowing shield. "It's adapting again," she shouted. Amelia's fingers flew across her controls. "Then we go analog. Forget the digital targeting, go manual." The others adjusted quickly. Moreno finally reached the general's flank and hurled a canister containing the virus, straight into its side. The impact hissed with blue sparks as the digital infection began corrupting its systems. The general stumbled, but didn't fall. Instead, it screamed, a deep, reverberating howl that sent the nearby infected into a frenzy. They began attacking indiscriminately, even turning on each other. "The network's unstable," Amelia shouted. "We hit the core, now we take it offline." Kane charged again, this time ramming the general with full force. Sparks erupted. The creature grappled him, their machines grinding against each other in a deadly embrace. "End this now!" Kane roared. Ruth leapt from her mech mid-run, landing atop the general. With a plasma blade, she drove the weapon directly into its signal hub. A blinding light exploded outward. The general convulsed. And then, it stopped. The signal cut. The infected froze in place, mid-motion, mid-roar. Silence fell across the valley. One by one, the creatures collapsed. Twitching. Powerless. Finally, dead. The battle was over. The valley, once echoing with chaos, now lay still. The remaining mechs gathered near the center, surrounded by piles of unmoving corpses. Ruth climbed down, bloodied but alive. Did we win? Briggs responded over the radio, his voice filled with awe. No. We survived. There's a difference. Amelia stared at the fallen general. If this thing was built by someone, then we need to find out who. Before they build something worse. Kane, leaning back in his cockpit, managed a faint smile. Then I guess we keep fighting. In the days that followed, broadcasts resumed. Survivors emerged. Across the world, the infected began to die off, no longer sustained by the signal. It wasn't the end of humanity. It was the beginning of something else. A reckoning. And for the first time in a long time, the world wasn't just reacting. It was awakening. Let me know if you'd like a downloadable version or audio-friendly formatting for narration.